Okay, Turquoise Mama here, and this is part 2 of my video series on what I did to survive life with a father who is a pedophile. And okay, so the first video I basically were stating facts, was giving kind of the premise of it. So I'm picking up where I want the conversation to go to what I did in having my own kids, and part of the conversation, and I think modes of operation that need to be discussed for other people, and that is not only did I protect myself growing up, and that was part of the ramification, or how it was part of the outcome where I learned to protect myself from my father, which was a ramification of pretty much protecting myself from all men. So I grew up watching myself when I was around any male person, in jobs, still at church, even though I was still going to church, it didn't matter where, and watching wherever I was at friend's house, neighbor's house, it's one of the things that just seems like every man looks like a pedophile to me. So there is a part of that where it's more of you're guilty until you prove innocent, for me with that, where I'm going to assume you're capable of doing that until you prove you're trustworthy, is where I live. And so when I started having children, I took that into that realm where I protected my children as much as I could, and that was not letting them go to other people's houses. On my husband, he was on board with me in protecting the children, so he kind of went more extreme than I did, but we both protected our children as much as we could from other people, and this possibly happened to them. So we were very wary of letting our kids be at someone else's house, or go with someone else to do something. And we how do I say this? We talked to our children when they got old enough, and we did go ahead and let them go to someone else's house for a party, or spend the night, or go with a function. We always would talk to them, especially if it was going to someone else's house. We would say, look, if anybody does anything to you that you don't like, that hurts you, or it makes you feel uncomfortable, you need to let us know. And we let them know that their body was not to be touched. So if anybody's touching your body, especially these areas, and we used a bathing suit as an example, anything that, like if you were wearing a bathing suit, if anybody touches you in any place that bathing suit would cover, that's not good, and you need to let us know. These are the conversations we would have with our children. And when they got back, I know I looked closely. I watched their gestures and their facial expressions and their demeanor very closely, and to see if there's any signs of change. And we would ask them, and I would ask them, did anybody do anything that you didn't like or was mean to you or made you feel uncomfortable. And if they said yes, I would probe them. Well, what was that? What was it? What was uncomfortable? What didn't you like? And we never got anything in the sexual realm. It was either like other stuff like, well, they didn't let me have a piece of candy, or or whatever. It was like stuff that would have been normal kid stuff, or well, I wanted to sit here. We were going to watch a movie and I wanted to sit on the couch, but they didn't let me. They made me sit on the floor or something. Stuff like that. Nothing that really stood out as something that would be anything that we need to be really, really concerned about. So those are conversations that we've had with our children, along with probably leaning on the overprotective side. And at this point in my life, I'd rather overprotect my kids and them not having to deal with the ramifications and having to heal from sexual abuse than some of the social issues that they are having to deal with now, where they have to learn social skills because they didn't run around other people and other kids a lot, and that's something I'm confident that they can learn now. Like I said, I'd rather them happen to go through at their age. All my kids are in their 20s now. I'd rather them go through happen to learn that now than happen to try to heal from the outcomes of sexual abuse, and that is coming from seeing the effects of it on other people. Now, some of it is me. I have had some, like I said, my issue with males on the planet. I have some issues with that. That has set up a premises of that. But my one sister, has struggled with that in a lot of ways. It has brought negativity and bad choices in her life, and I see that some of that effect. Now, my other sister, she has dealt with it, I guess, on the most part. I don't really, I can't really speak for her, because she seems to have just done okay, gotten married, had kids of her own. She's still married. Her kids are doing real well. So, I just see the effects like on my one sister, and then just things, that articles and videos and just people at church and work and different places I've listened to that have had to deal with the outcomes of this abuse, and the wounds and scars are deep, and so anyway, I kind of lost my train of thought on where I was going with that, but I just want to keep this conversation, and this is things that I think that we need to start doing and talking, and that is being more proactive in conversations. And this is where I would like to have community input, because I think we need to be more active earlier. I would like to see more people speak out about what's happening to them earlier, instead of waiting. I think that I know it's hard. I kind of get it's hard in one sense. I mean, I kind of don't, because I never really had to face that. But we need to to open up an atmosphere where people are able to talk about what's happened to them earlier on, so that we don't have all these people coming 10, 15, 20 years later and say, oh yeah, this person did this to me back then, because we really need to deal with it when it's happening, because there's just so much stuff in between. It just, when you're trying to go back with memories and trying to say, well, this person did this, said this, it's, I'm sure it's really hard for everybody involved to get what really happened and to hold people accountable. Because when you're trying to go back in time 10, 15, 20 years and hold someone accountable for something they did that long ago, there's a certain level of difficulty in that. And if we can talk about it sooner, that is my hope and prayer, that victims can talk about it, feel comfortable, and have a place that they can talk about it. And we need to also learn how to help someone who's dealing with that to recognize what's happening. Because that is one thing that I'm hearing in people talking about their abuse, when they're coming and talking about it 20, 30 years later, especially as children. They're saying that they didn't really know what was happening. They didn't really know. They knew they felt uncomfortable, they didn't like it, or but there's a lot of things they didn't understand, and we have to try to help them break through the dissociation, I guess is what I'm saying. That there's been people that said they've gone through such traumatic abuse that their brain has gone into this protective mode where it just shuts out what's happening, and it's not until years later they have these memories, something triggers memories, and they're like, oh my gosh, oh crap. And this is something I'm wanting to help these people. And this is where my heart is, because for something to be so traumatic that your brain has to shut down and shut that out, it's awful. And we really need to help these people. And so I don't know, what I'm thinking is if we can get a set of language and vocabulary that we're talking about, that we're using to help these people. Maybe that's something, I don't know, maybe it's a small step, but I don't know. It's just, I'm not a psychologist and I'm not a doctor, and, I can't be everywhere. I can't be everywhere at once, It's, I don't know, maybe this is where we need to, as a community, come together and brainstorm and say, okay, let's come up with a language, let's come up with words, let's come up with code words, let's come up with something that we can say that gets people's brains. People are watching YouTube videos and Twitch videos and whatever, all these different social networks, Facebook and everything. They're watching these videos in their home, and maybe there's something that can be said in a video, that if a video is playing, someone is watching a video, but someone else is in that same room, can hear those words and get their brain to say, hey, I need to say something to somebody. Hey, this is happening to me. And help them to feel comfortable saying something. So, like I was saying with my girls, or even with my children, my boys, it was using the language of, if you were wearing a bathing suit, whatever the bathing suit is covered, no one should be touching that area. I would tell them no one should be touching that area except for your spouse, or maybe a doctor, or your parent, if the parent is doing it for, like, helping you wash your body, or helping you if you got hurt or something. But I said, if there's something that, if you're being touched in those areas and it makes you feel uncomfortable, you need to talk about it. And your parent even needs to explain why they're doing that. Now, unfortunately, adults can be horrible people. Adults can use words that can twist what's happening. And when you're talking to a child, you can deceive a child. So my hope is, it's not 100%. It's not a method that's 100%, that's going to work 100% of the time. I remember my mom, I do remember this memory that my mom took me to see a doctor. And the room that we took I was taken to was on a different floor. It was on a higher up floor. But the examination bed, was right next to the window. So you have this high-rise doctor's office, whatever. I guess, I don't know if it was part of the hospital or what. I don't know. I don't remember why the building was so high. But, the doctor was female, but the exam took place on that bed, which was placed by this big window. And here I was supposed to take my clothes off so that the doctor can examine me. And my mother at least was like, wait a minute, she's by the window. Now, maybe it was high enough where no one could see. I don't know. And maybe it was the type of window that was tinted and you couldn't see in it. But to me, and to my mother was uncomfortable with that, which then she did put that on me, which I started realizing, because my mother's, I don't remember what she said, because I remember feeling uncomfortable all of a sudden, like, yeah, I'm in front of this window. So, it's something like that, there should be times that our brains are going, wait a minute, this is not necessarily a good situation. Now, maybe in that one it wasn't no big deal. Like I said, I don't know, but I don't want to push that off. Like, oh, we were all high. It was high enough no one can see, and it was tinted windows, so you can't really see in. Or giving excuses. That's giving excuses, and those things we shouldn't even be put in the position where we're having to justify putting a bed next to a window for a child, for someone to be examined. With no clothes on, when when they're naked or half naked or whatever. Why do I feel like I have to justify and give them excuses like that was okay? It's not. They should have. It should have been, the room should have been different, where there wasn't even a question. But it's conversations, these things that we need to have people, I think is it called critical thinking, where people are more aware of what's happening around them. It's just really, I'm hoping that things have changed with mentality, where the adults are more willing to accept what's happening and deal with it, versus, back in the 70s and prior, it was still this subject was still more hush hush, and if somebody even said something, like a girl would say something with her uncle, because we already know the facts are that 90% of these cases are people you know and are familiar with. Okay, so it's people you live with or neighbors and, that type of thing. So when a girl comes and is saying something to a parent or an adult, and they're brushing it off as, oh, well, they just love you. Oh, they just really think you're a great girl. They really think you're special. They know, they really think you're smart. And so they're just trying to show you how happy they are that you're doing so good in school, or, stupid stuff like that. It's these things that we're, as adults, saying to the kids. And that needs to stop. And I think on the most part, things have changed on that. It seems to be, it's more, this subject is being more talked about, but I can't really say. And this is where you guys as a community need to speak up, need to let us all know, are you getting supported when you're saying stuff like that? And this person's doing something to you that's not right, and you're telling the adults, they're telling other people, is the support there? Is it there where we're saying, wait a minute, what? And checking into it and finding out what's going on and protecting you. This is where we need to know. We need to know, are we protecting? Are we doing the protecting? Are people are allowed to speak up so they can get the protecting that they need? And are we that are listening, hearing it, and doing what we can to protect those people? Is that happening? That's just what we need to know. Because if it's not, then we need to do that. That's what needs to be done. And it takes every one of us taking that one little step, Anyway, so hopefully this video is a way to do that. I appreciate these people coming out and writing their books and coming out and talking about what happened. I'm trying to remain hopeful. Some part of me feels like it's too little too late, but maybe for those people, but they are getting their healing. A lot of those people are getting their healing, so it's just kind of a knee-jerk reaction, I guess, maybe. So this is something I would like everybody to think about and pursue, is open up these conversations and come up with other vocabulary and phrases that we can all use to start helping these people and stopping the people who are doing this, because that's really the bottom line, is if these people weren't doing it, we wouldn't, in the first place, we wouldn't have to protect the people who they were affecting. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to say in this. I'm sure this will kind of develop as time goes on, and hopefully other people continue with the conversation. Again, if there's any question or comments, please leave them. I'll do my best to respond to any of them. And let's get healing. Let's work together to get healing for people, victims of sexual abuse. And let's work together to stop it to begin with in the first place, so that we're not stuck trying to pick up the pieces and help heal these people. And let's open up our ears and eyes of what's going. We have to be aware of what's happening around us. And I know it's hard, and I know you just don't want to go start accusing all your neighbors and start calling the police on all your neighbors. I mean, that doesn't help. And okay, here's one thing that I was thinking, because I am sick of dealing with this in the church realm, where I'm going to church and going through all that, knowing that just down the road, seat in front of me, seating behind me, wherever, across the room, is someone that's happened to deal with this, both on the giving and the taking, or, well, that's not a good word to say, but receiving, on the giving, dishing out side, and the receiving side. And I am so sick of it, because I lived with that also. I spent time at church, driving in a car with this man, who, again, we went there and going through all this talk and what the Bible says, and singing praises and all the things that go along with a Christian walk. And here was this man. I have this man I grew up with. He's trying to chase Jehovah's Witnesses down the street, trying to tell them they're wrong, and try to tell them that they need to change what they're thinking. He also was a teetotaler. So here it was, you couldn't drink, and he didn't smoke. Drinking and smoking was bad. So he didn't drink, he didn't smoke, and he was clean shaven up until after he was in the time of marrying, I guess you would have been my stepmother. They weren't married really long enough for me to really think of her that way. And she wasn't really much older than I was, because she was like half the age of my dad. When they got married, he was like in his 60s and she was like around 30. So she wasn't much older than I was at the time. It's only 10 years older than me. It's like in my early 20s. Anyway, shoot, what was I saying? Clean shaven. It wasn't until, later on, about that time, he started getting a beard. But growing up in my home, my dad always came home and shaved. So he'd get home from work, and that 5 o'clock shadow, no, it's not going to be there. So he was shaved in the morning before he went to work, and when he got home from work, he'd shave again. So he was clean shaven, don't drink, don't smoke, make sure the Jehovah's Witnesses know the truth, and know Christianity right. Oh, but it's okay to go and touch little girls. Okay, no, you know what I'm saying? I've had to come to grips with living with that, and the brutal truth is that's still happening within the church. You still have Christians that are saying don't drink, don't smoke, but it's okay to do this stuff, No, it's not okay, and we have to say something. And I'm wanting to go to church and say, you know what, let's deal with this right now. I just want to go in there and scream, say, well, not scream, but just go, you know what, who cares, Pastor, what you have to say from the pulpit? We have people who are dealing with this, and we need to deal with it. Now, how to really address the issue in an environment like that, I don't know, because, honestly, if you did that in some of these churches that have, 1,500 people, 500 people that come up and show up any given Sunday or whatever service, 500, 1,500 people, we have these mega churches, so you're having 5,000 people in a service, if you honestly went and said, we're going to deal with this right now. Anybody who is being abused is going to be protected right now. And anybody who's doing the abusing, we're going to deal with this right now. What would that look like? what would end up happening is if the people confess to what they're doing, you would have to call the police. I mean, we're obligated legally to do that. So really, are we going to? Is that what we're to do? Is prepare for having people arrested, and then you have the family members of those people. What are we supposed to do with those people? And some of those people are too young to go home on their own. If you're a single parent, single dad, and you're doing that, and you're going to church, okay, and your child's in elementary age, you get arrested, what happens to your child? You know what I'm saying? So I know this is not necessarily an easy thing to handle. Like, how do we really address this issue and get it taken care of? Because, I don't know. Do we really want that? I mean, it wouldn't be easy. So how do we handle this? How do we go to these buildings and get this to stop? How many times do I hear this from the pulpit? How many times are we having pastors and the worship leaders talk about this from up there on the platform and saying, look, if this is happening right now, it needs to stop? And talking to the victims that are there. If you have a youth group, you need to talk. Okay? Now, there is an issue about having certain language and talking about certain subjects with people who are under 18. So how do we do this legally where we're handling it legally, but also the way it needs to be done, and the way it will help everybody and not, do you want to open up a can of worms? It's going to be, like I said, it's not easy, and this is where I'm at, where we need to come up with a plan to address this more aggressively and more proactively. And what that is right now, I admit, I don't know. I really don't know. But it has to start somewhere, and this is where I'm doing this video, and hopefully it gets out, and people are seeing it and listening to it, and the board meeting per se of what needs to be done can happen. I'm trying to start a board meeting. Let's get together and make a plan. This is what the issue is. Let's make a plan to fix this problem. And I'm asking all you to help me. Anybody out there who listens to this, help me. Come to this meeting and help me. Give me ideas. Let's work together with ideas. Let's come up with ideas. How are we going to handle this? How are we going to make this better? How are we going to fix this? How are we going to stop this? How are we going to help those people who it's already affected? How are we going to protect those that it possibly can affect? We're wanting to stop this so that this isn't happening any longer. Now, yeah, it's an idealistic goal, and I know it's 8 billion people on the planet, and I'm only one little person where I live here, so it's and sin, there's always going to be sin. We're living in a fallen world, and evil is going to increase, but the righteous is increasing also in these end times. So we really need to get and try to protect and help as many people as we can. And even if it is just one, for that person it means everything. And so if we can help at least one person, hey, great. But our goal is to help as many people as possible. Okay, I think that's it on this part 2. Not sure if there's going to be a part 3, but there may be a whole nother separate one. But I'm going to try to keep this open. If I think of something else that, you know, that I really would like to be done, I'll make another video. And on that note, with the dog, you probably can hear the dog. She's asking to go out because my husband let the other dog out from the bedroom out to the backyard, so now this one's wanting out, so I need to let her out. But I'm wanting to end this video anyway. So thank you for watching. Please, please, please leave your comments. Please help with this board meeting that I'm saying, and let's get some healing and some protection going. Again, thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time.